everyone, and welcome to the Rebirth Summit 2026 Stories of Unyielding Courage. I'm Kay Miller, host of the Harmony Principle podcast, where I spotlight change makers from around the globe. I guide ambitious moms to restore their natural rhythm so they regain the energy and capacity to hold the lives they've built. I'm honored to be selected as an interviewer for this international summit featuring 100 plus inspiring stories of transformation and rebirth. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Tim Blake. Dr. Tim Blake has spent more than 30 years working with individuals and families, navigating trauma, addiction, anxiety, leadership strain, and identity loss. Across decades of clinical practice, he began to recognize a recurring pattern. Many approaches stabilize behavior, but few restore wholeness. People were coping, but they were not coming fully alive. That conviction led to the development of life mindset. Drawing from extensive clinical experience, spiritual formation, and leadership development, Dr. Blake created a transformational framework built on the rhythm of receive, refine, release, and reap. Life mindset moves beyond symptom management into alignment, authority, and sustainable growth. It integrates psychological depth with spiritual truth to help individuals rebuild identity and move forward with clarity and strength. Dr. Blake has contributed articles and participated in leadership summits with Yukon Faith magazine and hosts Living Life Mindset on Faith Points 101 Radio, where he explores renewal, resilience, and purposeful living. His work centers on one guiding belief: when alignment is restored, life multiplies. We're so excited to get into the powerful mission that he has to help others, and his story of rebirth is one that will move, inspire, and empower you. Let's welcome Dr. Tim Blake to the conversation. Welcome,
So
Dr. Tim
glad
Blake.
to be here. Yeah. And so, sorry for that. Got a little tongue tying. It should be, straightforward. But that's the bio. That's the essence of the beginnings of all this. It really doesn't give the full snapshot because it doesn't really say much about my life, other than kind of
Mhm.
what I do,
Yeah, well,
or where I've
hopefully
been
we'll get
going, or
into
where I'm
more.
at in my journey right now.
Mhm.
So, yeah, when we're talking about rebirth, we're talking about transformation, in terms of understanding me and how I've been able to help. It helps to go back to where I grew up. Now, I'm not somebody who's had a big, huge, traumatic moment. I didn't suddenly get TBI or anything of that nature. But when I grew up, it was not stable. See, first things first, in school, you imagine you're in first grade, you're going to school and you're immature. See, my birthday's in June, so I didn't stay back a year, so I was behind everybody in maturity level and development. But you're in first grade, you don't know any better. You're immature enough that you pick your nose and you eat them. So harassed them at that level. They called me Booger Nose. And this was a Christian private school, mind you. And I got harassed. I harassed all the way through seventh grade when we left that school. And then again harassed even more so in public school. And they called me Stony and had other sorts of all sorts of various harassment that occurred up until really 11th grade, 12th grade. They kind of let you alone. And so I was always, pretty much on my own in terms of being rejected there. And then my family background, see, when I was maybe 8, 9, we don't really know the year. I can't get the year nailed down for my dad. I think it was before or after 76. Not really sure. But my mom was hospitalized and was allegedly for bipolar disorder. I'll explain why allegedly in a minute here. But entered into the world and beginning to understand that there's some things you don't understand. See, my mom was volatile and being admitted for a period, mental health unit, different than it is today. And she was put on lithium. She didn't even take that off and down, but she was frequently unstable. 1 minute be one way, 1 minute another. It turns out she had complex trauma I'll get more into that in a second here. But for me, I'm a young man, and then she'd respond one day, she'd respond another. So, there was some uncertainty there. And within all that, I didn't get proper emotion regulation training or really much development. I got bullied, I got harassed, and in school, I had no real, safe place other than, what was good was always pursuit of growth. Mom always had us, learning things. You name a hobby, she had us try it. Even from coin collecting to stamp collecting, playing guitar, you have it. She encouraged us always to grow. And even she sold the word to me as a young man, as a teenager, after walking a relative that was very, very intoxicated home from my grandmother's house. And I got back, and, Tim, you seem to really listen well, and you should think about getting into psychology as your career. That was the seeds first planted then. But the effects of the things in my life, and there's compounded elements. In high school, in my senior year, I was so emotionally suppressed, and I didn't let things get to me that they purposely created a senior category for the yearbook of most unaffected. That's
Mm,
how locked down I was. That's
mm,
how emotionally stifled I was. And if I wasn't emotionally stifled, I was very passive aggressive and very defensive.
mm,
I would poke at people's buttons without even realizing it. When my dad told me, as a kid, I used to say, I just sometimes do things just to see what people would, how would they'd react. I was kind of
mm,
watching and wanting to know. My passive aggressive got to the point junior high and high school at a 20th century American Lit had a class where I was bored with stories. And so the teacher would say, "Oh, if you can make up your own story, maybe I'll give you enough credit on the class." Well, see, that's one class I got a D because I just started screwing around and trying to make up stuff. Passive
mm,
aggressive, cut my nose despite my face on that level. Um,
mm,
and that kind of behavior would continue. And as it continues, there really a couple key moments. I began to unlock emotionally about the time where after my grandmother died and my mom began to have flashbacks.
mm,
See, she was always abused by her oldest brother, who was schizophrenic. He died before I was ever on the scene, but every possible way she was abused. And of course, since I was in psychology and I was around, this would have been 1987, 88, that she would then unload on me. I'd be the one that she would unload on to hear some of all these lovely flashbacks. So yeah, you shouldn't really do that to your adult child. But
mm,
within that and hearing stories. Yeah, yeah. I read Worthington's book, yeah, Unlocking the Mystery of Your Emotions during this time frame, and I began to unleash and begin to understand emotions.
mm,
Now, given that, and fast forward, the next key pivot point in terms of my change journey comes in 1994. It was a hard year. My parents got divorced. I
mm,
was working on my master's program. And my brother got married in that time frame. I worked a job. I was working with group homes with totally disabled. I had, some exaggerated and accusatory elements that were thrown at me that cost me a job. And I got, adult protection was called. And I was like, well, I didn't do anything to harm anybody. What's going on here? So lost that job.
mm,
Um, and there were other elements, the practicum, where again, the supervisor, it's like, okay, tear you down and let you see all your faults in the middle of all this going on. Um, and so really began, God used that time to really began taking down some walls. At the same time, I was leading a men's Bible study,
mm,
in terms of going through some information, just in terms of men and having discussions and being able to talk about what's going on. See, in all that background, one of the areas besides holding back, it really was phobic, especially of women. From my mom's
mm,
experience, some of the harassment, some of the things. I hadn't dated anybody, in 1995. I'm in my 30s, okay? No dates, not really, other than and when I was passive aggressively with a friend in college, and he set me up with two women at the same time to go on a date
mm,
because I messed with him so much. He did that as a punishment.
Mm.
Yeah, for fun. Yeah, in terms of my passive aggressiveness. Um, so in this Bible study, and I finally, and because I knew I had stuff, I was struggling. I would go to one therapist and said, I just started asking women out. I go, no, that's not going to work. Yeah, I don't think you get it. Yeah, it's not a formula here. And
Mm.
so, but in that, and I was like, of the men and sharing their stories, I was the last one to kind of go, and I'm facilitating it. We get it to pray it, and then suddenly in this, and my good friend who is now deceased, but my good friend there, God spoke to him. He gave him some visual prophetic words, which he never even received that kind of thing before and not much sense with anybody else, but that was something that recurred that God then used in a process to begin pointing me in the directions of understanding, learning, growth, and leading me through steps towards change. To be able to be unlocked and released and move forward, to be able to grow and mature into who He had me to be, and lead me to eventually meeting my wife, getting married, other things.
Mm.
Now,
What
so God
did
met
that
me.
feel like for you, Dr. Blake? What did that transformation feel like for you once you started to make those changes?
Right.
Can you take us
Well, it was
into that?
really scary.
Mm.
And at some levels, it was dependent upon when's the next move going to be, because you get these images that were very vivid, and
Mm.
then you don't really know what it's going, but it describes things. You describe taking down the walls. See, when you
Mm.
lived your life constrained and afraid of rejection, and on the balance between pride and shame, you really don't trust anybody. In fact, I didn't trust anybody so much that, right after I got out of college, had a senior, a Stevens minister. But in my mind, even it's like, well, he's got to get the right key to get me to share anything. Yeah, and you generally wouldn't get the right key. That's how
Mm.
defended and locked down I was, and my shame and my pride. In my master's program, I was coming off as arrogant. I even know it.
Mm.
Yeah, because I was a process. I'm going to be able to help anybody. I did think that, and I communicated that, and others were put off by me on that
Mm.
level. So how did it feel? It felt like a process and a journey and uncertainty and things, but knowing that God is there. He interacted in a way he doesn't interact with others in a way unique to me. See, he created me without visual images, by the way. I have aphantasia. I can't get
Mm,
a
I have
visual
that
image in my
too.
mind if you paid me. And God didn't
Same.
make me that way. So he used the visual images through my friend who was a creative writer, a very visual individual, that he created him that way. And we came together and he began a process of growth and freedom there to be able
Mm.
to unlock what he's put in me to be mature and grow, prepare me for my life after that. Because after that, 1994, I got my master's degree and start helping people.
Mm.
And it turns out he helps me primarily in crisis levels. The first job out of grad school was a crisis residence. Then I moved into the emergency room, working with people at their worst. In terms of helping people get safe and safe. As well as doing some counseling on the other and going through that process back up to my practicum, my supervisor told me, Tim, yeah, you're going to work really well with the really difficult men. I had no
Mm.
idea. I'm now working, for example, in my second job, besides working in emergency room with chemically dependent homeless men. They're
Mm.
about as difficult of men as you find. The next step of difficult is either, sex offenders or prison, in
Mm.
terms of the direct work. And that's the work has. A
Mm.
few years ago, I did fully get the capstone of my mental health career and got that doctoral degree. And a doctoral degree, I was fixated and my thesis on growth mindset and relationship with positive mental health.
Mm.
And I finished that, and it's like, okay, God, now what? I've been doing the mental health stuff here. I know what works, I know what doesn't work. I've been doing this a while, and it's all good. But what do you got next for me? Where are we
Mm.
going? And then I looked into it and I explored and I go, oh, coaching and teaching folks stuff. I think I can go into that. I think I can move into that. That seems to fit kind of where we're going. And then it took some time. It's like, okay, what is it I'm going to do? I even bought The one before doing summits, I bought training on the summit system. Spent a good chunk of money. Wasn't fully quite there. The first one was working on men. Was really really small. Second one working on being confident, unique. Got me at least a small start. But I didn't have, the life mindset yet. I didn't have the idea that said, okay, this is the message that really fits, and when people hear it, they're going to go, oh, why didn't I think of that? I even when I got this, and I got this with connection for Lima, and she's having us do an assignment for keynote speaking. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, okay, what I do, I could go do the teaching on growth mindset or even add benefit mindset. I could do that. That's easy, but that's not it.
Mhm.
That's not really it. Sat down and thinking, going, okay, what I'm about. I mean, I'm really about life. At some level, it's all about life. I'm just like, is life and mindset ever been put together? Is that a thing? It's got to be a thing. Yeah. Okay. And I look it up, and no, it
Mhm.
wasn't a thing. It was
Mhm.
completely original. And then praying, and it's like how to formulate it, and how to
Mhm.
formulate it into the process of moving, ahead and recognizing the fact that we're constantly growing. Just like in my life, I had cumulative injuries. That rejection led to the things that even still moving into coaching, I've faced some of these injuries that it's like, oh, I thought I dealt with that. Oh, I gotta grow in that more.
Mhm.
We move from one level to another. Scripture says from glory to glory to glory. We're in constant maturity until the point where God takes us home. And
Mhm.
so in this, each moment, each phase of your growth is a process. And yeah, and you think about it, it has these four movements. See, we're given things in life. We're given some good, we're given some bad, and we're given some downright ugly, right? So we got some pain, we got some trauma, we got some growth, kind of like my story and some things that just mix anything. You can't really tell where the good starts and where the bad ends. Even heard some of that in some of the stories already. So you've got these things that you've been given. Sometimes you're not aware of them.
Mhm.
And sometimes you don't recognize, but you're given a starting point. You're given what God's given you, and even the words that God gives in time, or prophetic words out of nowhere. Whatever is in your story. And once you have that recognition, that reception, then what we do, when we take in, we have what we've been given. You got to refine. You
Mhm.
sort through what is good what is not so good, what needs to be adjusted, where you can make improvements, where you mature, and what to leave behind. All these things. It's a matter of refinement, making the adjustments. With
Mhm.
God and through the process as you refine. Once you get that, then you got okay. Well, here's the good stuff, and here's the stuff that's not so good. And so the stuff that's not so good, I got to let go. Some of that's like forgiveness. Some of that just okay. I'm not going to hold on to trying to control that anymore. That is not me. I'm not going to live defensive. I'm going to let God defend me. I had to get there.
Mhm.
And you let that go. But then the other side is on what do you do with what God's given you? You sit there, you hoard it, and I got this good stuff. Or do you take it, okay, what do I do with this? These seeds actually that I've got to put into play that can have benefit in others. It's not just meant for me.
Mhm.
Then how do I put it into play with what God's put in front of me? That's what we then release. And when you release that, uh, God works on those things you release to then you get the return, you get the release, you get the reap, you get the fruit of what God did. And then you move on to the next journey and the next part of your journey and the next phase. Where you get your next word, you get your next thing. You got action, you got rest, you got whatever it is that enables you to move forward and keep progressing.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, I love that framework that you have of receive, refine, release, and read. That's really, really uh, a great way to see the steps. And before we close out, Dr. Blake, did you have anything else that you would like to share with someone that might be still stuck or in pain?
Right.
Someone who's listening, who's where you used to be, and what do you want to tell
Right.
them?
So we get stuck. The question is, are you willing to engage? Are you willing to talk to God about where you're stuck? Are you willing to ask God to show me and to move in my life in these areas that have me locked up? Yeah, yeah. Many people don't even know. I talk to people about identity. I don't know. It's what I do. It's just very common to not know, to feel directionless, to feel a void. But the starting point of any of that is what do you hear from God? Are your ears open, your eyes open? You able to see? And then if you hear from God, then can you see that God has put something in you? And can you take the steps to march forward and move forward? Actually, for me, the year that I'm moving and things I'm talking about for are really marching forward. I've been talking about this month about ignition, about getting started, and it starts with the word. And as your word, you get the seed that's in you, and the fullness of what's already there, and understand that, and let it get put into play, and then put into play what God asked you to put into play, to put things out there. And then we get this process, you put it out there, you got a point that we can't see what's happening. But you take the steps. You take a step and hold on, take a step and hold on, and eventually then something will sprout up. Because I'm just at the beginning of this coaching business. I've been at it 3 years. Life Mindset just last year. We're progressing in one step and another. I'm not where some of you are, where you've got, things have progressed. I'm still at the beginning of my phases of where God's leading me, but he's led me and brought me and taken the steps. See, I'm one that can easily pull back. I've done that in my life. Pull back. I'm stuck. Okay. All right, God, when are you going to get me moving? No. Yeah. You take the steps that are in front of you today. And if you can't, that's okay. Ask God about it, seek others, and get people around you to help you move, and as God leads you to move. Like suddenly a prophecy out of nowhere. Even here, God providing me something from nowhere. Last year, God provided for me the base costs for what I need to keep the business going while I get to where He brings the fruit in time. So I got my expenses covered. I'm not draining money from the personal account and having to explain to the wife, okay, yeah, I got to pay $1,200 for my funnel system. Where's that coming from? It's covered. You never know. And so in that, and you never know. Life mindset. I worked at it. I worked at it, trying to come up with what was going to be, and suddenly it came. But I engaged by connecting with Lima and the speaking training and practice that she had. And it served a time, and I always grateful for Lima for God using her to begin to stir me up for the step to develop life mindset. And
Yes.
for this, on that, you can go lifemindset.life, and that's my website. I've got a 40-page primer that you can just go primer.lifemindset.life, put in your email, you get that. I've just opened up and started my membership groups. It's started. So what's going to happen there? And there's always going to be a free level and then some steps up. And for anybody, that's all free until at least May 1st, as I'm getting that activated and going and seeing what God does, the teachings. And yes, God led me to Faith Point Radio. I've now got like 52 episodes, that I've aired. Of course, they air and they're in my vault, but I've got it, so I'm going to offer, for less than the price of a cup of coffee, access to all radio episodes. You can get to that at radio.lifemindset.life and find that. And yeah, Faith Point 101, another link that you can understand for the radio is wfptr.online/links. That gets you there. My episodes air Wednesdays or Thursdays at 1 Eastern or Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Always a new
Awesome.
episode each week on that front.
Beautiful. Yes, that's great. Definitely taking action is so important, guys. Just putting that one step in front of the other, even if you don't know which
Hmm.
direction you're heading in, you got to take some
Correct.
action. So I thank you so much, Dr. Tim Blake, for sharing your journey with us and your heart and your powerful story, taking us all the way back to the beginning and bringing us to present day and how you've been able to trust and lean in. Your journey is a beacon of hope. And this has been another incredible conversation on the Rebirth Summit 2026 Stories of Unyielding Courage. I'm Kay Miller, and it's been an honor to host this interview as part of this global movement for healing and transformation. Stay tuned for more interviews from courageous speakers all around the world. Until next time, this is Rebirth TV signing off.